Welcome everybody to the Dave Knows Comics live stream. I'm your host David Lee, back for another edition, and today's episode really gonna be a fun one because I'm all about, that's right, Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, and what if the snap went the other way around? It's an interesting question that I thought of, and I was really wondering what everybody else has to say about it, but I do have some interesting tidbits, things to think about, things to ponder when it comes to this idea, because I think it's really interesting. We know the way it worked out, and obviously, in case you haven't figured it out yet, spoilers for Endgame and Infinity War. I think the statute of limitations is up on that, so I don't know if I have to keep saying spoiler warning, so you're not getting the fancy spoiler warning graphic, but I was pretty sure that I'm good for that. I don't have to say it anymore. But either way, just letting you know, just in case, now is your time in case you haven't seen either movie. But if you haven't seen either movie, I mean, come on, like, who hasn't seen those movies yet? All right, so first things first, let's talk about the snap itself. Just do a quick recap. So when it comes to the events of the snap, we know that half of the universe, the entirety of the universe, got taken out of existence by Thanos. That was how things ended at Infinity War. Going into Endgame, hey, I said, thank you, Vinny Montaigne. I wish Okado gets nice. Oh no, I would still mention it. It still happened, Arthur, but hey, hello, Arthur. I'll be civil to you. Hello. So yeah, all right. So let's do a quick recap. So we know at the end of Infinity War, half the population of the entire universe was snapped out of existence. And then we went into Endgame and we saw that get undid by the remaining Avengers. They worked really hard to undo things. So I guess the most first and obvious point that we need to bring up is, of course, with that half that got snapped out of the population, and I already warned you, spoiler warnings, Iron Man! Iron Man was in the half that stayed on Earth, stayed in existence, and his ultimate sacrifice is how the movie Endgame ended, with him sacrificing himself and saving all of the universe, the entirety of the universe, from Thanos. As I pointed out in his honest promo, I think it's kind of weird that his whole redemption arc about creating mass destruction weapons ends with him blipping out a whole bunch of people out of existence by creating an ultimate weapon. No, that irony seems to be lost on a lot of people, but yeah, I understand they're bad guys and they're aliens, but still, I think it's very odd that nobody puts that out. Why start now? Hey, Y equals I would have survived the snap. Harry Flynn says he would have taken the snap on the chin and survived. He would have kicked out at 2. All right, Harry Flynn. All right, I believe you would have survived it no matter what, either side. So I'm a witch on that one. Okay, so that's the big one, and we will hold on to that a little bit because before we get to the end of Endgame, what if the beginning of Endgame never happened? Because Tony Stark plays another fundamental part in the story, a very, very important part of the story when it comes to how we deal with things. And that is, of course, because he is the one who discovers time travel. He's the one who figures out how to fix the entire problem. He's the one who, just wangs out time travel on his dining room table like it's no big deal, which I think is weird. Oh, Mark Stray says he would eat the snap. But yeah, so Tony Stark just figures this out. Led to a hilarious scene with his daughter, which I found very funny. But yeah, he figures out time travel. And through the course of his time travel, all the Avengers go back in time to get the Infinity Stones and create a new Infinity Gauntlet to be able to snap everyone back into existence. And of course, leading to that ending that Tony Stark sacrificed himself for. So without Tony Stark, it seems like we would have a major, major problem here. However, I wonder, is that necessarily so? Well, let's look at a couple other candidates. Hey, good evening to you, Dave Long. Good to see you. It's been ages. How are you? I'm good. I hope all your commissions are working out well. I know you're a very busy man, very talented artist, Dave Long. Definitely talk to him and check him out. No. Iron Man was not. No, let's not bring that storyline up, please, Arthur. Iron Man's so smart he probably could have created FB. And yeah, I guess so. I assume Facebook is under his control. But yeah, so Tony Stark's the one who figured out time travel. And he's the major player. And the way the MCU breaks down, this is different in the comic books, of course, but the way the MCU tends to break down is it seems fairly safe to say that Iron Man is one of, if not the smartest person in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so without him to create time travel, it seems like the whole plot would not have happened. However, there is something else I would like to point out before we get into that, because what would they have done? Could they have solved the problem? Could they have changed things without time travel, or at least without Tony Stark creating time travel? Good questions. Don't worry, I will be getting to that. But here's some additional information I have, or an additional point, because I think we need to also remember Ant-Man. Yeah, Scott Lang shows up at the Avengers' doorstep, and he tells everybody that he's back, and they realize that there is potentially a way out because they need to commit their time heist. Now, the question here is, now, a lot of people aren't sure about this one, but how does Scott Lang's fit into the equation of this? Because he was not snapped out of existence. We know that. The rest of the world assumed that he was, but he was not. Is that because he just wasn't snapped away? Or was it because Thanos has no power, or the Infinity Gauntlet has no power in the microverse? Did the microverse protect him? So was he in a quantum realm? Sorry, to use the MCU term, the quantum realm. It's the microverse in the comics. I got news for you. But the quantum realm, the microverse, whatever you want to call it, was he protected by being there? Were beings inside of the quantum realm immune from being snapped? Now, that we don't know, because as far as we know, he was the only person there, and he just wasn't snapped away. So if the problem was that he was not protected and he was snapped out, then that is another major fundamental problem, because that means that everything we know about time travel, or everything that the MCU learned about time travel, remember, it came from Scott Lang and came from him going to the Avengers' doorstep, and that's how they use the technology. That's how they use the technology to figure things out. That's how they learn about things. Oh, let's check out. Let me take a time out to catch up on things. Hey, Ben Espinoza. Not anything yet. We're just going over a couple of ideas. Harry Flynn said Iron Man proved that he could make the sacrifice play by not cutting and laying down on the wire. Absolutely. There's something else that was pointed out by the Russos, if I'm not mistaken, that they found something very interesting when making this, is that Tony's story arc and Captain America's were actually interjecting with each other. So they were actually crossing paths, and it was kind of interesting. That wasn't planned on purpose, but that was just the plan that they were on. Where Tony Stark, when they meet in the Avengers, Captain America, I love that you brought this up, was Captain America says to Tony, he says, "You're not the guy to make the sacrifice play, to lay down on the wire, to let the other guy walk over you." And Iron Man says, "I would just cut the wire," and comes up with a smart answer for it. And even Captain America says, always got an answer for everything. So yeah, Tony Stark was the guy who was always not going to make the sacrifice. He'll think of a way. He doesn't believe in no-win situations. He was going to find a way to do it that everybody wins. Meanwhile, Captain America would just lay his life down on the line and he sacrificed himself. But at the end of Endgame, Tony became the guy to sacrifice things for the greater good. And Captain is actually the one who winds up finding a life, settling down, getting with Peggy and everything. So they realized that was an interesting dynamic. And Civil War is really where they intersect. They start here, and then they eventually cross, and then they end up at different points. So it's an interesting dynamic. Mark Strike says Ant-Man would make time travel. No, well, let's hold. Interesting point. Let's talk about this. Whoa, blast from the past. I haven't heard of Ant-Man since I was like 6. Oh, you mean 2 weeks ago? Dave Long says very busy. Comic-Con Berlin. Oh, done and dusted now. Vienna Comic-Con. Traveling all over. Wow, so many things. Whoa. Big names for Dave Long. Major fanboy coming there. Yeah, of course. Excuse me, chatting with the time heist. Well, thank you for stopping by, and I hope you're loving the sights and loving the traveling and doing all that great work, because you are a very talented artist and you definitely deserve all of it. Mark Shark also likes Titans. Cena's going to be Peacemaker and Suicide Squad. Okay, that's better. All right, so, but yes, back to the lecture at hand. So, going back to Ant-Man. So it's hard to figure out what would happen if Ant-Man, because we don't know what happened if Scott Lang is actually part of the snap or not. So let's take it both directions. Let's just say right now that he was part of it. So let's say since he was just didn't get snapped away in this reverse situation, now Ant-Man is not able to be around. Let's just say he did get snapped out of the quantum realm. If that was the case, we have a major problem, because he's not there to tell the Avengers about this, and his technology and all that is going forward. But, let's just say, I said but way too many times, let's just say for a second we are kind of forgetting something, because let's just say that's not necessarily so, because while Ant-Man would have been snapped away, if everything was reversed, that means Hank Pym, as well as the Wasp, the original Wasp, his wife, and also their daughter, Hope, would all be around. So we do have Three now, quantifiable people who are understandable about the quantum realm and how, specifically, especially with the OG Wasp, especially with Janet, we know how time travel works, and she is way more familiar with how the quantum realm works and how time travel could work. So she has the mastermind, she has a role, and if anything, she might be able to facilitate things a lot better than Scott could have. So if Scott was snapped out of existence, that means we would have gotten all of them there. Now, let's say Scott was immune because he was protected being in the microverse. Well, he would also be there, and so would Hope, so would Hank, and so would Janet. So it only gets better for that case. And Hank Pym, while he is not shown to be on the level of Tony Stark in the MCU and even in the comic books, he is a brilliant mind because that is something that can't go overlooked. He hasn't got enough play, but he has actually a brilliant mind. Hey, Dave Long, no problem. And don't worry, I still remember we got stuff to do. Ron brings up a point. I was trying to save it till later. Okay, but might as well bring it up now because Ron brings up Shuri. I might as well, and that's the fun about these live streams. They don't necessarily always go according to plan. So Ron brings up, it's possible that Shuri could have come up with time travel with Pym. And I very much agree with that. Shuri is noted, now in the comic books, she's not necessarily known, and I think she slips under the radar for a lot of people because in the comic books, she's not necessarily known as being one of the smartest people in the Marvel comic book universe. In the cinematic universe, on the other hand, it's very well established she is one of, if not the brightest mind in the MCU, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And especially considering that she's so young, there's a chance that as she grows, she might be even smarter than Iron Man. There's a possibility she might actually take that spot. And what's also interesting about this, though, it does bring up one other question, because not only would she be brought back, because she was snapped away, we didn't see it on camera, but she was snapped away, is also T'Challa himself. Because in the comic books, he is considered to be one of the top 8 smartest people in the Marvel comic book world. However, in the MCU, not so much. However, I think it's still clear that he is a smart guy. I wouldn't say that Black Panther isn't smart in the MCU. But the question is, how smart would he be? Because in the comic books, he's one of the top smartest dudes there is. So if in the Marvel Cinematic Universe he carries any weight of that, it is a little bit of additional help. That is true. Roberto Soto, do you consider Jason Todd a better character than Dick Grayson? I absolutely do not. Dick Grayson is one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. Dave, would you trust Arthur with an Infinity Gauntlet in his hands or a WWE writer version of Albert? I don't want him with a gauntlet on his hand. He would have only unattractive women left if Arthur had his snap. So, yes, Ron, I do like that you brought that up because, yes, Shuri, so we might as well get into this now, bringing it up. Hey, no problem, Dave. Like I said, you definitely deserve it. She is smarter than Wolverine. Well, that's not hard to say. She's definitely smarter than you. Hank, Reed, Namor, any of the Illuminati. In the comic books, yes, but a lot of those guys you just mentioned have not been seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least. Not yet. So back onto Shuri. I do think Shuri is a very good candidate, especially with Hank Pym, as Ron pointed out so greatly. That is a fantastic point. Because I also want to point out something else, too. It's that Hulk, in the MCU, for the most part, is considered one of the top brains as well, as we saw. And after the snap, he, along with Tony, seems to be the top 1 and 2 people left in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in terms of brain power, especially with Shuri out of the equation after being snapped. And while Hulk does not achieve time travel, he comes close. He seems to understand things. And remember, this is like what? He worked on it for a couple of days. This isn't a paint by numbers or a boxcar kit. It's something that would have taken a while. So there's a possibility while he might not have gotten it right there, he could have gotten it with time. However, the problem is there is a limited amount of Pym particles, so who knows if there is that. But there's also a possibility he might be able to discover Pym particles and so on and so forth. So who knows what they would have been able to accomplish. But just want to point out that Hulk wasn't able to quite get there. So if he was snapped out of existence, do Shuri and Hank Pym, are they able to make up for Iron Man and Banner? Are they a better team? Would at least an equal team? Would they be able to put their brains together to get there? But there is one more minor person to bring up here in this aspect, and that is Peter Parker. That's right. Spider-Man himself, chosen by Iron Man as his successor for some reason. Now, I'm a huge Spider-Man guy. He's my favorite comic book superhero there ever was, easily. Unless we count He-Man. Spider-Man is my favorite. But in the MCU, let's be real here. I'm not going to give away the Homecoming, the Far From Home, in case you haven't seen it. But let's just say he's been proven that he's not necessarily, at least this version, at this age, brilliant mind, of course, but he's definitely not necessarily the person you want to trust with all that technology. He's got a lot of learning lessons to learn. So I think there might be a chance he could contribute a little bit, and not as much, though. I think Pym and Janet and Shuri are probably going to be the minds to solve this time travel dilemma. I think they'll be the ones to really hone it in. Game could be a weird movie if the original Avengers was out the way. Yeah, it would have been a weird one. Inigo Montoya. The MCU wasted Red Skull so badly. They did it. There are a lot of room. There would be so much more to find out. But remember, seeing the fact that his appearance came about in Infinity War, and Cap is gone by Endgame. Like, what else could they have done with him? Like, without Cap, yeah, sure, you could bring him up, but as a whole, his options are over because he's a Captain America guy, and without Cap, there's really, it's not as interesting. And additionally, I will say that I did like his run in comic books, and I wish they did it a little more, where he was like anti-mutant. They like updated him as like a more comic-friendly version of a Nazi, which is an odd sentence, but I like that action. Captain Marvel. Okay, Big Blue Attack brings up Captain Marvel. Okay, I love this. All right, so here's another question. When it comes to Captain Marvel, we're also not sure about this because she is so powerful. What if she is immune to the snap? There is a chance that's true. However, I don't think there is. Why? Because we know, at least it was stated once upon a time, whether it still is or not, it has been changed. But it has been changed a little bit. The official answer on screen has not been given. But at one point in time, it was suggested that Scarlet Witch received her powers from one of the Infinity Stones or gems, just like Captain Marvel did. And if we remember, Scarlet Witch was snapped out of existence along with it. So being powered by an Infinity Stone doesn't make you immune from a snap. So I think Carol Danvers would be snapped out of existence. And if that's the case, if the snap was reversed, she was around, so she'd be taken out of the equation too. So there would be no Carol Danvers to be around. So no Captain Marvel if the snap was reversed. So while she is a very formidable superhero and a very powerful one, personally speaking, though, when Spider-Man gave her the gauntlet at Endgame, she was supposed to just put it on and snapped it. That way everybody could have been saved. But anyway, just throwing that out there. Not necessarily. That's not what... Okay, never mind. I thought someone was saying something else. Excuse me. Ben Espinoza, hey, Dave, does MCU stand for Marvel Cinematic Universe? It does, Ben. Where are you? Need a tied garbage bag behind... What? Where are you? You need that tied together garbage bags behind you. This is not garbage bags. This is cloth, fool. It occurs to me that there we go. Ron got there. Ron, you are on fire today. So super smart. So catching on to everything. Man, maybe you could have figured out time travel. Okay, so all the time travel components that I said, all the superheroes I mentioned previously, yes, they're a big factor in the time travel aspect. But one big one, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange would have been back. Remember, Doctor Strange was snapped out of existence. And so while all the science is out there, and all the science has been done in a lot of experts on the quantum realm, a lot of brilliant minds like Shuri, as well as Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, are all out there, we get Doctor Strange because maybe, just maybe, magic was the answer instead. Remember, he is the keeper of the Time Infinity Stone. He understands how it works. And also, remember, in Infinity War, he did make the promise to Thanos that he would give him the stone if he would let Tony Stark live, as that was the only possible foreseeable way out of it that he saw, is that Tony was the necessary one. So unfortunately, though, while I think Doctor Strange would be able to use his time travel magic powers to go back in time, that does bring us all to one very specific point, and we have to go back to it all the way back to the beginning, and that's in all those millions of visions, Doctor Strange only saw one with an outcome. And that outcome, where we won, everybody won, and that was Iron Man had to sacrifice himself. That was the only way. However, I do think it's interesting to say, what if maybe he explored like a couple million more? Maybe there was like, maybe the next like 3 million were like all ways that we could win, and he just kind of goofed by stopping at that point. Maybe there were other possibilities. Maybe there was also one where Doctor Strange sacrificed himself, and he just decided, no, that doesn't work for me. Oh, wait, there's one where Tony goes away. Oh, that guy is a douchebag, so it's okay. Maybe. Not saying that he did that. But yeah, so Doctor Strange. But hypothetically, let's just say there was another way out of this situation. I think the time travel and the Infinity Gauntlet storyline could have worked if we got the other side of the equation. I think these are the people behind it. And Doctor Strange is one of the biggest candidates, I would say, as well as Scarlet Witch. Even though she may not be able to understand the time travel magic, I do think Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch put together, at least from what we know about Scarlet Witch in the comics, could have put together a really, really solid plan. And it would have been interesting to see if possibly magic there. Roberto Soto brings up this Scarlet Witch has any chance against Thanos. There were people who actually said in interviews that they thought that Scarlet Witch is actually capable of taking Thanos one-on-one if she was given the right time. Hey Dave, did the first Marvel comic book come out in 1939? It was technically not a Marvel comic book. It was known as Timely Comics, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been Atlas Comics. It was the same company, but so it depends on how you define it. Atlas Comics, I think, is the name that it had before Timely Comics. So if I stand corrected. So Harry Flynn would figure out time travel, and you would survive the snap. So I guess they're in luck with that one. But yeah, Ron, good job figuring out all the places I was going with this. But now that we have all that out the way, there is one more thing I would like to talk about, and that's if it's even necessary. Sure, there is the possibility that Thanos snaps out, he accomplishes his goal. That's it. Oh, and also remember, if the other half got snapped, Thor, Captain America, and everybody else, that ending, where the beginning of Endgame, where Thor goes after Thanos, that might not have happened. We might not have gotten that. So who knows? That could have played a much bigger part if Thanos was there to still retain his abilities of making sure that everything goes the way he wants according to plan. And also remember that if he's still around, if nobody gets rid of that universe, that timeline's Thanos, and then the other time period Thanos, maybe he comes in and there's two Thanoses. Maybe they wipe each other out. Maybe they don't. Another interesting question just to wonder about, just food for thought. Superman could beat Thanos. Well, yeah, it seems like Superman beats everybody. But there's also that possibility. What if there were two Thanoses? Or what if that main timeline Thanos was able to somehow sabotage things? So maybe that's the other reason why that won't work out. I also would be very curious to know, what if they just went back in time to help that on the planet Titans? What if they were there to stop Star-Lord from beating the crap out of Thanos and waking him up? What if they just went back? Anyway, they could have either just prevented that from happening, but they could have also just gotten that Infinity Gauntlet and just made life a little bit easier. Anyway, the other possibility, and sure, everything could have just stayed the way it is. Thanos' plans carries on, and it just stays like that forever. But there's also one last thing I want to talk about, and that's, what if time travel wasn't the only way out of this? What if there were other ways? Sure, Thanos destroyed the gems, the stones. What if there was other ways? Because the Russos have actually said that the stones really can't be destroyed. Sure, they were destroyed, but they would eventually come back together, or their essence still exists in the universe. So there are other avenues. So what if it wasn't just time travel? What if they could have figured something out? Like, what? I don't know. What do you guys think? What other ways could they have brought everybody back and saved the day and had a happy ending without using time travel? Got any ideas? Let me know. I want to see that down in the chat, and also let me see that down in the comments if you're watching this later on. Go ahead and check that out, because right now it's time to go over to the wrestling live stream, the Dave Knows Wrestling live stream, and that's right. Inigo Montoya does point out the two Thanoses. Yes. There you go. Okay, so Inigo Montoya also has figured that out too. So yeah, I would love to keep talking about this. Let me know if you want me to do more about this, follow this idea up, talk about it anymore, or if there's any other concepts you want to discuss when it comes to regarding the other side of the snap. Let me know that down in the comments. But yeah, this conversation ran very well. Good live stream for the comic book channel, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So, but right now, yeah, I didn't realize I'm kind of short on time, so that's why I'm kind of speeding through this. But going over to the Dave Knows Wrestling live stream just in a couple of moments. Thank you so much for being here and keeping it real with me. I'll check you next time, and as always, Dave Knows.